How is it fair for God to judge us for what we do when he's in control of everything? It's a great question. You know, it's funny, I get this question from people who are believers in God and people who don't believe in God. Those who are believers in God ask this question because they want to try to understand this mystery of God's sovereignty and human free will. And those who don't believe in God think that Christian theism or just theism in general is incoherent because if God is sovereign, yet he judges us, that seems to be horribly unfair, yet he's also the God of all fairness. So how does any of that make sense? Now, this is a problem for any monotheist who believes in a sovereign God, whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, whatever it happens to be. So it's one we need to tackle, and I think tackle with some great seriousness. The first way to look at this is to understand that God's sovereignty can be expressed in two different ways, but they're complementary. The first way is what's called his directive will, that God wills something to happen and then makes that thing actually happen. For example, the creation of the universe or his plans. For example, in the Christian understanding of history, God knew that human beings were going to fall into sin, but he orchestrated a plan whereby he would bring about the salvation of the world through the sacrifice of his son to pay for all the sins of humanity. That's God's directive will. And there's plenty of things he does all the time. When he performs miracles, for example, in the Bible, he will do something directly. He will part a sea. He will raise people from the dead. He will give sight to the blind. That's his directive will. But there's another aspect which is called his permissive will. In other words, God knows what's going to happen, but he allows it to happen. He allows us even to exercise our free will to allow his good purposes to happen because he's worked it all out where he understands everything that's going to happen so that he allows things to happen. Even if he could stop them or start them, he simply allows them to happen, knowing that they will actually effectuate his will. Now, is there an element of mystery here? Of course there is. You know, whenever someone asks me a why would God question, you know, how could God do this? How could God do that? I approach it with some trepidation because it's asking me, a very finite, limitedly intelligent human being, to crawl into the mind of the infinite, one who knows everything and is the ultimate source of all intelligence. So I don't want to say too much, but I can speculate. And there is some mystery here. I'm going to have to live with that. But it's quite possible, in fact, it seems logical to me, that God not only knows what will happen, he can foreknow what will happen, and he can ordain certain things to happen in the future, but God knows also what would happen under certain circumstances. So God knows what you and I would do based on how he knows us through and through if certain options were presented to us. And we freely choose to do those options. He knows what's going to happen, even though he doesn't cause us to actually make that choice. Let me give you an example of what I mean. So let's say we're roommates, you and I are roommates, and you're training for a marathon or an Ironman or some incredible test of endurance. And you're training and you're eating right and you're losing weight and you're getting trim and slim. And I'm not. I'm just sitting on my couch watching television. And I happened last night to have gone to one of these restaurants that gives you the obscene chocolate cake that, you know, is as tall as a small child. And I bring that home and you know it's there. And I also know that you have a raging sweet tooth, but you've been training. So you come home from the gym or come home from a run or whatever it is, and you're a sweaty mess, but you've worked hard and you feel like I got to have a good meal, take a shower and go to bed because the race is tomorrow. But you know that chocolate ice cream cake is sitting there calling your name in that refrigerator, and you are going to battle it out for the next 20 minutes about whether you're going to eat it or not and try to go for it, or if you're going to, you know, stick to your gun, stick to your regiment. And I watch you battle it out, and you win. You're like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm showering, I'm eating my meal, I'm going to bed, I'm waking up early in the morning. And you do all that. And you choose to not eat that chocolate cake. Little did you know, I threw it away. I threw it away before you even got home. You couldn't have actually eaten the chocolate cake. In my sovereignty over the chocolate cake, I removed the consequences of a bad choice from you. But you freely chose not to eat it. So I can exercise sovereignty and you can exercise free will. And we see it in that example alone. It's certainly possible that the God who knows everything could orchestrate all of our lives in such a way that we're able to exercise our free will and choose him or not choose him. It's certainly possible that we could do things that would heap judgment on our own heads or heap praise on us as well. And just because God knows it's going to happen, God can be in control of the universe, doesn't mean that he causes these things. We see this in the Bible as well, that God causes a plan to exist for our greater good, even though through our free will we might do wicked things, but God works them out for good because he loves us. You see this in Acts chapter 2, verses 23 to 24. Peter the apostle, having seen the risen Jesus, gives a testimony about how Jesus was raised from the dead to save the very people who condemned him. And he says, this man, Jesus, was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. And you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. It was God's plan, but they exercised their free will in doing something that was evil. But God raised him from the dead, God's sovereignty, freeing him from the agony of death because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Friends, you and I have exercised our free wills in ways that do require judgment, but God in his sovereignty has provided a solution for you and for me.